Welcome back to the Mullen Performance YouTube channel. I wanted to explain today, I needed a topic. I wanted to explain today how I got into car audio. So, a lot of my stuff might be car audio related. I'm still waiting on injectors for the truck. So, I guess I just sit down and explain how I got into car audio. So, I think it was about 10th grade or so. I had a friend that lived down the street. He's a couple years older than me. I think I was maybe 14 or 15 years old. I think I was 15 years old. And he had gotten a truck, a 76 Ford Ranger. It's the one with the big body trucks. He got it from his dad. A little inline six, 300, Ford 300, your typical, pretty neat older truck. And he'd come pick me up from school, take me to school, which where I live, it's only 5-10 minutes away. And he came down the street one day and picked me up, and we took off. And he popped tape. This is before CD players, so he popped in a tape, and it was like, I don't know, DJ Magic Mike or something like that. I just remember tape was like red. I mean, it was like chrome red or something. It was something to that effect. And we started bumping, and I'm like, what in the hell is that? And he's like, oh, I put a sub behind the seat, and because I knew he had the radio, but he didn't have the sub in there. He didn't tell me he was building the box and all this stuff. And it was a single cab, and he flipped up the seat, and there was just this ugly, horrendous box that just looked like it was carved out of a piece of wood with spoons. I mean, it was horrible. But he had a 12 in it, Series 112. And, at first, the bass didn't excite me that much. But the box, I was like, because my stepdad, all these years, has taught me how to woodwork. He does furniture and stuff like that. And I always watched him and learned when I was a kid. And I always helped him do little projects and stuff. And I'm like, I bet you I could build a better box than that. So I said, hey, dude, let me build you a box for that. And it's kind of funny because, now I love bass, and building and all that stuff is something I enjoy doing. I never thought I would still be doing it here, 30, 35 years later. So went through Dad's scrap pile. I made a box. I mean, it was horrible too, but it was 10 times better than the one he had made. It had, I think, maybe like 1/4 inch Luan face. I didn't know how big to build it. I said, how big do we build this? He goes, I don't know, as big as we can. Okay. So we measured out behind his seat. We made a sealed box. It was just plain Jane sealed box, 112 in it. We stuffed it full. I think we found an old egg crate, or maybe Mom was throwing away an egg crate, and we just ripped it up and threw it in the box. And we put so much of it in there, we had to shove the sub down in the box and screw it down. Like I said, I didn't know anything about it. It's my first attempt at doing anything like that. And it sounded 100 times better than the box that he had put, his original box. And right then, that's what kind of piqued my interest for car audio. I couldn't believe I built something, first try, that I had no idea about, and it came out pretty damn good. So, I think it was either birthday or Christmas was rolling around, and they asked me what I wanted for, what I wanted. And I'm like, I want a Series 112. And they're like, what the fuck is that? So, so we went to, there's a little town here close to where I live, a little town named Centerville. And there was this little bitty shop in the middle of town. You wouldn't know it from your ass in a hole in the ground. And walk in, and this dude sells Rockford Fosgate. He sold some Pioneer. He sold some Kenwood, but the majority of his stuff was Rockford Fosgate. And I went in there and I bought me a 12. I didn't know how much it was. Mom and Dad bought me a 12 for whatever, birthday, Christmas, whatever. I had nothing to put it in. I wasn't even driving yet. Nothing to put it in. So I had it for a little while and just let it sit. And I decided I was going to build a box that would fit his truck. And I was going to get another one of these. And I saved up some money. I was working at the conservation club here in town. It's a story for another day. Worst job I ever had. Don't ever do it. And I saved up and bought me a second one. So I made a box. The something a little bit more than what I thought I liked. And I put a little tiny port in it and put these 212s in it, hooked it up to mom and dad's house stereo, and just had it for a little while. And we put it in his truck, and it sounded amazing. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to get a car to put this in. So my very first car was the very first car I got. My dad had given to me was a 1980 Malibu. And before I even started driving, he had went ahead and sold that car, and I didn't get that car. I was kind of disappointed. So mom was kind of I was kind of pissed off at my real dad, and she says, "You need to get him a car." So he buys it was a Mustang, V6 Mustang. I couldn't even tell you what year it was. He gives it to me drive, and it would shift into drive. I drove that thing around for like 3 months in first and second gear. And the day I went to take it back to him because I'd gotten me a car for graduation, I'm cooking down this road, and I think I got that thing up to 70 mile an hour, and it's just screaming at like $7,000, and then it shifted into drive. I drove it a mile in drive before I gave it back to him. So anyway, and I put those two subs in there. It's funny. I put those two subs in there with the Jensen amp, and it sounded pretty good with the hatch and all that stuff. Absolutely hated that car, though. So my very first car, funny enough, my very first car was actually another 1980 Malibu, two-door. And I put those 212s in the trunk, saved some more money up, and bought me a Punch 60. So I had Punch 60, two Series 112s. I had some, I don't even remember, random speakers. That car had dash speakers in it. Some, if you don't know, some Malibus don't have that. That was an option. Little 3.5s in the dash, and some, I think they're maybe 5x7s or 6x9s in the rear deck. And it was horrible. I didn't know nothing about car audio. It had some janky ass wire in it, some of that stuff. Even the car had solid core wire. It was that old. And I still have another car. It's my 79 I have now still has some of the solid core wire in it. But I mean, the car audio, that was my very first system, was that tape player, and I just rolled around bumping with that setup. And as I got more, as I wanted more bass, because 212s just wasn't cutting it, I decided to step my game up to 4 Kenwood 12s. And he had 4 Kenwood 12s, and the Kenwood 12s looked pretty good at the time. I don't remember what series they was. I had that guy build me a box for him. He charged me out the ass for it, and it sounded okay. But the problem is that box was built to go in my back seat. And let me tell you what, when you're usually your friend's taxi and you take away the back seat out of your car, and that means you're one less friend, you get to know who your friends are. So I decided that I went to school. I started going to vocational school, and I went to vocational school, and I met a guy named Cedric Satterfield, and he's still one of my good buddies to this day. Cedric had a wagon, a Country Squire wagon, and I think at the time he had 2 or 4 12s and individual 4th order bandpass boxes with, I think, a PPI art amp. And at the time, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. And I'm like, man, I got to do that. I got to do something like that. I don't want to do exactly what he did, but I got to do something like that. So, we got to be good friends and just messing around with car audio and in general. And we would cruise all the time. And I'm like, man, I got to have some more bass. So I found me a Malibu station wagon. Now, Malibus are going to be the theme. They're still the theme of my life. I've had like 8 of them now, 9 of them. But they're great cars for doing random stuff too. And I had decided to up my game to 15s. So I got some Punch 15s. I was still bumping on my Punch 60. I upgraded. I went in one day and upgraded to a Punch 250M, Power 250M. Started putting capacitors, learning about capacitors and wire gauges and all that stuff, which around here, nobody was here to teach us. I had to figure this stuff out on my own. And the first time I think it was the first time Cedric said, "Hey, over here in Dayton, they're having a car stereo contest. Why don't you bring you bring your wagon, I'll bring my wagon. We'll go out and do this." I said, "Okay." So I competed in like the two woofer class, and I think it was like zero to I don't even remember what class they put me in. I think that one was like they did a woofer class instead of a power class. But my very first show I went to, the very first show I went to, I got first place, and that ruined it for me because after that I was hooked, and it started off that I ended up adding two more um, 15s built into a clamshell wall, and ended up doing I think back in the day, I ended up doing with the 250M and the 415 somewhere around like high 140s. And back in the day, that was pretty damn good. If you were getting anywhere near 150, so I think the record at the time was like 55 or 56. It wasn't even maybe even a 57. It wasn't super high compared to what they are nowadays. That's nothing. Um, so I get this. I went like the very first time I went first place, and then I go and win like second place and third place and second and first, and we went to like 6 shows, and I think I placed at every single one of them, either first, second, or third. And it's just like I knew I went to a show around my local area, I was going to place, and because nobody just had any really loud bass around here, so I upped my game even more. I decided that I was going to go from 415s to 815s, and I doubled everything. 250M, 850 or two 250Ms, 815s. I think I had 10 caps in there. I had a 60, a 40, a punch 100, door speakers, everything. I mean, the dude over at Centers was bad. And Ron remembered this. If Ron watches my videos, I was making your uncle's rent, I think, for months. Months. God damn. He was just cashing my check one after another. It's like, you make money. I was like, yeah, I need like $50 to eat on. And then the rest just kind of went into the car audio fund. And so I went through that whole process, and then ended up, I said, I've been driving, that car ended up a little bit too much. It ended up being like hydraulics and wheels, and it's too much. I'd done too many things to one car. I couldn't make my mind up on what it wanted to be. And I fight with that to this day with a lot of my projects. So I was 18. I decided that I was going to go buy me a new truck. Now, I had always worked really hard to get my credit score where it's supposed to be. And I went out and bought me a brand new, at the time, 1997 GMC Sonoma extended cab. And didn't need a cosigner, didn't need a down payment, got it. I think I paid like $17,200 for that truck, brand new. Um, and first thing I did is I went out and bought a cap for it. I built in this area the first dedicated fourth order build. Some people were building like fourth orders and like cramming them in there. I built the very first true fourth order build in this area. I called Fosgate, and it was so amazing because I had never talked to anybody from Fosgate before. And I called up, got a hold of their tech guy, and I said, "Hey, I got 8 punch 15s. I have this much space. What do I do? I want to build a fourth order." And he gave me about a 1-to-1 spec, which nowadays I wouldn't build that again, but back in the day, So I built basically what was the equivalent of a 815 clamshell inside of a fourth order. And I remember it as 16 cubic foot, or a little over 16 cubic foot in the back, and I think 18 cubic foot in the front. And I don't remember, he gave me the port size, but I ended up changing it. Inside the bed, and it fired through the back window. I took the back window of the truck out. And I remember getting it all done, and I remember the first time I drove into town, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. And I'd been to several shows and everything, and it was just the loudest system I had and the loudest system I'd sat in and could sit in and just play whatever I wanted. And I'm driving into town, and I started laughing because the mirror broke off. And it didn't break the mirror, it broke the actual aluminum stud that was attached to the window. And it broke it in half, and the mirror's just swinging. And I just busted out laughing because I thought that was so funny. My brand new truck here, and I'm just breaking it to pieces. And I get all the way to town, and I go to pull into the shop, and I always park next to the shop, which is kind of behind it. And a cop just comes flying up behind me. He's jumping out. Why are you running from me? Why are you hiding from me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I heard your steer. I was all the way in the back of the dealership, and all of a sudden, shit was just rattling off the walls. And I come running outside, and I see your truck going down the road. And I'm like, sorry? He goes, why are you running from me? I'm like, dude, I work here. This is where I work. I'm going to work right now. I have a job. That's how you afford these things. And then come to find out he had knew my father, so he kind of let me go. Oh, so good of him. Such a menace to society that I am. So I went with that system for quite a while and won several first, second place with it too. And then I added, on a whim, I added 2 more 10s inside the extended cab part. Ran those off my old 60 that I had. Excuse me. And had 10 15s in there. And now you got to remember, this was 98, 99. And in this area, I would have to say this was probably at the time the loudest system. People could say what they want about some other people's systems, and there was some other people not quite in this immediate area, but it was the loudest around here. It wasn't like, oh my God loud, but I tell you what, there's been a couple times where people sat in it and thought, well, oh my God, this is horrendously loud. Went down to visit my cousin in Virginia one time, and I pull up in a parking lot, and it's their little cruise spot out in the middle of nowhere, and man, people surrounded my truck like you would have thought a celebrity had pulled up, because everybody just stopped in this parking lot and just surrounded my truck. There was 150 people just mobbed around my truck, and I'm like, holy crap. And I mean, it's just one of those things that, people see stuff and they think it's so cool. I was so used to it. It didn't, I'm like, whoa, these people were just freaking me out. But it was neat. So, like all my projects, they go one way, then they go another way, and then I combine a whole bunch of crap together, and then I get tired of my projects, and then we switch gears. So, as we were doing all of our indie bash shows and all of our stuff, I decided I wanted to make the truck into like a mini truck. So I had taken everything out of it, and I went with the 6 Atomic 15s in a sealed box in the extended cab part on the 250Ms. And that sounded pretty good. It was almost as loud as the 1015s I had in there, because I think it was such a smaller space, a little bit better subs, and it was not as much strain on the amp, because 415s on a 250M wired at 1 ohm on a bridged amp, it just you could cook eggs on those things. You really could. So I did that for a little while, and then ended up getting rid of the truck, and then kind of getting out of car audio. I had like a Focus with 2 SPL 12s in it, and some pretty cool wooden boxes I still have over here that they came in. And then I kind of got out of it for a little while, and just recently I've watched videos of, like, within the last, it's been about 5 or 6 years now, I think maybe 4 years. I've caught Derek and Hi-Fi and all those guys, and Justin and Toids and Andy and Scott and all those guys, and Kicker, Kip, all those people, and they've just kind of reignited my passion for car audio, and it's something I want to. I've been a locksmith for almost 30 years, and I think it's time that I switch things up a little bit and maybe start going and doing some of the things I still enjoy. So that's my story for car audio. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I left out. I want to say thank you to Justin from DIY. Is it DIY Audio Guy? If I messed that up, Justin, I'm sorry. If you sat through 20 minutes of me babbling here, he gave me a shout out the other day, and I really appreciate that, because everybody starts out somewhere, and it's not often that, you throw videos out and people actually watch them, because usually it's just some idiot like me sitting here babbling on for 20 minutes about absolutely nothing. But that's my story. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully things will get bigger and better. Um, I'm still. If anybody needs my help, anybody wants my help, I'm still here. I help you as much as I can, but I still got projects and things to do and stuff like that. But I'll try to point you in the right direction if I don't know. So you guys have a good day.